members, and I had a lot of wonderful help from people at the church, preparing a meal and bringing it to my home, but I still had to clean my house. Not asking, although someone did offer to even help clean my house, because my wife is very sick again. You could keep my wife in your prayers. I think she's got pneumonia. So, that beside the point, all of you know when Mama is sick, Daddy's busier. That is never fun. So I had a full day. We had a first volleyball game for my daughter too that had to be worked in there, and some cleaning and some preparation, and I had the sermon prep today as well. So I started running around in the midst of the day, trying to get this done and that done, and lo and behold, somewhere in the process of the day, I lost my keys. Now, I don't like losing things, and it's been a long time since I lost my keys. It's significant because I used to always lose my keys, so I kind of pride myself on not losing them. Yesterday, I couldn't find my keys. I just had no idea where they were and how to retrieve them. This is a spiritual story because we are invited to hold on to the keys of our faith, whatever they may be for us. Because I do believe, like our gospel story today, God invites us up the mountain to show us special times in our lives, special moments in our lives. And how we act and remember that moment becomes important about our ability to reach back and find it when a lock needs to be unlocked. What I'm saying is that God will make God's self known to you through your life and your experiences in very dramatic ways. And it may not happen all the time, and it may not happen every day, although it can. But there are special times. And how you recognize and remember that moment impacts your ability to find that key and use it when it's time to open something up. In our gospel story today, it's so interesting. Peter, James, and John are all invited up the mountain with Jesus. Remembering now, these boys have just heard from Jesus within a week, I need to be crucified. I will die. I will suffer for you. Peter says, shouldn't happen, don't let it happen. Jesus kind of yells at Peter and says, sorry, Peter. It's part of the plan. And now they're up the mountain. And what they experience there is tremendously impacting upon them. First of all, I'd like to point out something about these three people. Peter, James, and John are the same three that will be invited with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The night that Jesus goes to pray about his crucifixion, and does he have the strength to go through with it? These three are also invited, but in that circumstance, they won't receive glory. They fall asleep. They abandon Jesus at his greatest time of need. I wonder, is that why Jesus invited them to go up? So that before they had to deal with heartbreak and tragedy and failure, they experienced God's glory in transfiguration in a powerful event. So that when the difficulty and failure came, they had a touch point to look back upon and realize they're not all bad. And in fact, They know something about Jesus that no others know before his crucifixion. That's interesting. I also think it's significant who these gentlemen ran into on the mountain. They ran into Moses. Moses represents the law, the Ten Commandments, the giving of the law. Moses also brings into the Jewish culture the history of the giving of the stone tablets, which we read from the Old Testament. It brings in God's glory and presence up on a mountain. There's a direct link between the law and Jesus, both going up a mountain, both experiencing God's glory. And they experience Elijah, who represents all of the prophets. Elijah was the greatest of the prophets. And Elijah was thought to return before the Messiah came. And so these three Jewish followers are seeing the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy that Elijah will come again to earth before the Messiah comes. They all got to see Elijah on the mountain. That is powerful and interesting. What I found most interesting was Peter's reaction. Peter, in the moment, experiencing Moses, Elijah, and the transfiguration of Jesus, says, "It is good for us to be here. Can we build 3 tents? One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah?" And that was not the right response. I don't want to say it was wrong, but it wasn't what they were there for. The text says, before Peter is done speaking, God breaks in with an audible voice to say, "This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him." This now reaches back only 2.5 years or 3 years to when Jesus was baptized. When he came up out of the River Jordan, the same words were pronounced in the gospel. But what happened was Peter's idea in the moment was kind of shot down, and a new approach was taken. How we experience spiritual moments in our lives is important. How we react, how we speak about them, how we remember them. In this case, Peter was rechanneled by God himself through God's audible voice. Sometimes we have to learn to hang in there in the spiritual moment. We have to learn not to talk over them and to listen and pay attention for further instructions. Because what was significant about these gentlemen being up on the mountain is they were told, now's not the time to speak. Tell everybody after the Son of Man is raised from the dead. So they were given a gift that was specifically to be used at a very painful time in their life. They were given the spiritual awareness of who Jesus is, so that when their hearts were crushed at the resurrection, at the crucifixion of Jesus, they had this key to go back to find. How do you remember your moments? How do you remember those times where you experience God so powerful and so real that you put him away until you most need to reach back and grab it? shared a God-sided story, shared some moments. You shared some moments where God touched you in your life and you observed God in a powerful way. And you recalled it and remembered it and wrote it down. This Lent, we are going to be blessed by reading people's moments of faith. They are special gifts that they're sharing with us. I hope you will appreciate and honor them. As I started to think about how I have experienced God in real, powerful ways, I didn't worry about losing my keys anymore. That became less important. What really bothered me, God has spoken to me. I have experienced this moment of transfiguration. I have. If you haven't experienced something like that, it's almost impossible to make you believe it. But I was sitting at my table in Sierra Leone, West Africa, in my little Peace Corps house, and I was reflecting and praying over a few struggles I was going through. And there was a picture of Christ on my wall directly across from me, and I had my Bible out, and I was praying. And in a moment, that entire room lit up, as bright could be. The picture of Christ, which stood directly across from me, almost came to life. It was just a picture. It wasn't alive, but it took on life. And then God spoke. How do you remember your moments? What are your moments? And what has God told you? Your moments don't always have to be this dramatic event. Your moments can come in the midst of a mistake. Your moments can come in the midst of speaking too quick and suggesting the wrong action. That's what happened here. Peter made a suggestion, let's build something, let's stay up here, and God spoke right there. If God has spoken to you, do you remember what God said? And how God has directed you? I forgot what God said. It was short and it was sweet. I have an idea what it was. I think it was something like, you'll be okay, or you're on the right path. You would think, having had that experience, I would remember exactly what was said. This is the first time in my life I cannot recall what those words were. How does that happen to us? How do we lose our keys? How do we get so busy that we forget when God has spoken to us through marriage or baptism or the health restoration of somebody or even someone's death at the funeral? You would think if God speaks, you would remember. But I can't recall the words exactly. I do know it was powerful. I know it was real. And I know I need to keep working on remembering what was said. Our journey of faith, it is important that we remember how God's grace works in and around our lives, and especially in the dramatic ways. Because our life will come to the moments where without those memories and without those times, we will chuck it. We will be done with it. We will be too tired, too stressed, and too worn to do the very thing it is God told us to do. So I want to encourage you this week to think about a special moment where God touched your heart. It could be simple, through nature, it could be dramatic. But I want you just to think about it and remember it in as much detail, as much as you possibly can. And put it someplace where you'll know where to find it. The blessing. I went through the process as much as I can to remember everything. And I'm almost there. I'm just not confident to say these were the words anymore. But I'm confident to know God spoke. I traced my steps. I went through my memories. I prayerfully thought about it. And I got to a spot where I need to be today. And by the way, I did the same thing with my keys. And I found them hanging in my office door at 11:30 last night. I just ran in and out. And I left them hanging there. And so I found them. I want you to find your keys. I want you to find your memories of faith. And I want you to know that that is one of the ways God's grace acts and works in your life. There will come a day you've got to pull that key out and use it to open the door that's holding you back. And that's real. And I believe that God works in all of your lives. The proof is our God-sided stories. The proof is you're seated right where you are. That's God at work, providing us with blessings, experiences, and moments to draw on when we most need Him. Remember yours and keep them safe, for they are truly precious gifts. Amen.